Welcome to the New York Giants Thursday night meeting tonight. We have author Steve Hermanos going to be speaking about his brand new book, Going, Going, Gone. Just want to inform you of certain events that have transpired or that are upcoming since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. I was watching the Giants loss today, but today in baseball history, the last game was played between the Dodgers and the Giants in New York in 1957, September 8th, 1957. For those who have not been on, who've been away on a different planet, our last meeting with David Krell, Willie Mays' uniform number was discussed, and then lo and behold, 2 or 3 days later, the Mets made Joan Payson very happy by retiring Mays' number 24, and truly a great ceremony that nobody, for those people out in San Francisco and anywhere else, you know, Ralph Cramden talks about people being blabbermouths. Nobody had any inkling of what was going on. Wasn't in any papers, nothing. So the Mets really did a wonderful thing.
True.
If you don't feel the Mets did a wonderful thing, you might want to read the New York Post today, because Mike Francesa and Chris Russo railed about the Mets retiring Mays' number. So next year is Bobby Thompson's 100th birthday. I wrote a letter to the Staten Island Ferry Hawks about possibly having a Bobby Thompson night at their stadium. I also asked them if they would consider retiring his number 23. Thompson is the most famous sports athlete out that ever performed in Staten Island, and he spent his whole baseball career living in Staten Island. I know it's a minor league thing, but I think that's really good publicity. And if that happens, we'll make an event of it and go to the game. And whoever wants to join me, that would be a nice tribute.
And if I interrupt, Gary, your
Sure.
letter was brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Harvey. That's very nice of you. Lastly, I watched a Zoom on the New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn Nets, and the author of the book is now writing a book on the Subway Series, and it's not the Yankees and Mets. It's the Yankees, Mets, and the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Yankees as well. So if you have information and you could speak about that, please email me. And you can't, it's not like he wants somebody who's read articles. It's people who sat at the Polo grounds and are aware. So if you were 5 or 6, probably not something that he'd probably want to speak to you about. And finally, next week we have Mario Alioto of the San Francisco Giants. He's had an amazing career, starting off in the visiting clubhouse with the Giants. And he is now, a really big executive with the Giants. So any questions regarding the ball club, Willie Mays Field, the plaques around the stadium, whatever, that will all be up for grabs. And of course, despite our hostility toward the Giants, I know everybody will be well behaved. So in any event, I'd like to welcome Steve Hermanos to the New York Giants Preservation Society. Steve has a brand new book out. It's a novel, and he will explain it. And Steve is also has some great stories to talk about the Giants in New York, and a restaurant he owned all the Polo Grounds. Steve, the floor is yours. Welcome to the New York Giants Preservation Society.
Thank you.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Gary, and everybody. I get all of Gary's emails. I read them all, and what you guys are doing is fantastic. You guys have a great amount of energy and are doing really wonderful things. I'm 60 years old. I grew up in Manhattan. A friend of mine and I started a bar called the Polo Grounds It was on 83rd Street and 3rd Avenue. We opened it in 1987. We sold it in 1989. The guy who bought it ran out as a sports bar and changed the name to the Back Pages, which people there might have remembered. It was diagonally across from Martell's Bar on 83rd Street and 3rd Avenue. In 2002, I moved from New York to San Francisco. I live in Sausalito, which is right across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. I wrote 3 books of poetry about the San Francisco Giants and the World Series runs in 2010, 12, and 14. George Vesey of the New York Times wrote a column about the 2010 book and me. And during the pandemic in 2020, I put those 3 books together as a trilogy. It's called Oh Gigantic Victory Trilogy. You can buy it off of Amazon. But this book, Going, Going, Gone, I started writing this in 2012. It took 4 years to write and 6 years to get published. It's a baseball time travel novel. You might remember a baseball time travel novel called If I Never Get Back. I don't know if any of you guys have ever read that, but the inspiration for writing this novel was as a baseball fan and as a writer and as a lover of literature, a lover of baseball. I've always found baseball fiction for adults rather disappointing in that the baseball that's in those books is not so integral into the fate of the characters and the outcome. So my aim in writing this book was to write the most exciting baseball novel ever. And as the stakes ratchet up for the characters, eventually, whether or not the team wins or loses a game becomes life or death for some of the characters in the book. So to give you a quick little synopsis, has anybody bought the book? All right. Has anyone read? All right. I assume no one's read the synopsis or knows anything about it. So basically, the 20-second version of the book, and then I'll read you a few excerpts that I think that you'll find very, very interesting. So the 20-second version of the book is the first baseman and the second baseman of the San Francisco Giants during Game 6 of the World Series are chasing a foul ball, smash into each other, the ball drops, they almost come to blows on the field. They blow the game, they're in the shower. One of them pokes the other, a fight ensues, they're dragged into the manager's office. So it's the manager, who's this grizzled guy named Bucky Martin, the superstar first baseman named Andre Velez, who's a bit like Barry Bonds, and then this rookie replacement level player named Johnny Blent, who's the second baseman. So these 3 guys are screaming at each other in the manager's office. The manager's trying to get him to calm down. A massive earthquake hits the stadium. A beam falls across the door between the manager's office and the rest of the clubhouse. They're banging on the door, trying to get out. An aftershock destroys the stadium even further. There's a hole ripped open in the wall of the manager's office, and water from San Francisco Bay is rushing in to the manager's office. There's only one way out, and it's through that hole. So they scramble through that hole, swim out into San Francisco Bay, crawl up the embankment in McCovey Cove. They're covered in mud. The 3 guys are naked. People are running away from downtown, which is on fire. And they turn, and there is no stadium. There are no buildings around that they recognize. And over the next couple of hours, they each realize that they've been transported in time into the 1906 earthquake. So these three guys, the first thing they have to do is figure out how to survive in 1906. Then they go back to the stadium site and try to figure out what the heck happened to them, and desperately try to figure out if there was a wormhole or something like that. That's the only thing they can think of. They try to find the site of the manager's office, and they start digging in the ground, and they're absolutely nothing. They do this for a couple of weeks. And then finally, having given up trying to get back that way, they figure, well, let's do the only thing that we know how to do, which is play baseball. And so the three of them take a train from over in Oakland to St. Louis to try to see what's going on with the St. Louis Browns or the St. Louis Cardinals. And they get a tryout with the St. Louis Cardinals. What happens is they get a 6-game tryout with the Cardinals, and Velez, who's the superstar in the 21st century, who's a dead pull hitter, finds out that his batting style and his approach is completely inappropriate for 1906, and he gets cut. Blent gets hired, and in the next game in St. Louis against the New York Giants, Velez and the manager Martin are in the stands watching, and Blent walks across the field, looks up at them, and says, "I've just been traded to the New York Giants." So this is about how these three guys deal with baseball in 1906. From that point on, most of the book takes place in New York, in Manhattan. And Velez desperately figures out what to do with the guidance of Martin, and then Martin as well, using 21st century advanced analytics, impresses John T. Brush's fictional son and gets a job with the New York Giants. So that's the basic background. Do any of you guys have I will read a few excerpts here that I think you'll like, but at this point, do you have any questions about it?
Steve, I think the best thing to do is read the excerpts, and then, you'll have a question and answer. How's that?
Okay, good. Now keep in mind that this is a time travel baseball novel, and they go back into 1906, and much of the world as we know it from our history books is the same, but a few things are different. So it's a little bit of an alternative history, so that we don't know really what's going to happen. Let me read a little bit of a few passages here. So this is the first time that they see the Polo Grounds in 1906. So Blent is with the team, Martin is in the stands, and Velez, the superstar, who's pissed off, angry about the whole situation, says that he didn't want to go to the game, and then changed his mind and went to the game. And Velez is actually sitting in the outfield with the overflow crowd. So this is opening day in 1906. So we'll start with Blent. Blent is digging his right cleat into the hard-packed dirt at home plate. Teammate George Brown takes a short lead off first. Blent looks at McGraw in the third base coacher's box, who bellows at Blent, "Come on now." Then McGraw turns to the Boston pitcher, Pfeffer. "Your mother's a fucking whore." Unflinching, Pfeffer checks the runner at first, kicks, and fires a fastball. The pitch rising at Blent's head, he twists away, crashing to the dirt. The crowd boos Pfeffer. New York players and McGraw scream threats at him. Blent gently chuckles as he brushes himself off, glancing around at the little grandstand, the bleachers, at the fans, men in neckties and derby hats, scattered women in dresses, at the arc of crowd sitting on the grass 40 deep behind a temporary rope barrier marking a parabola along the deep outfield. It's extremely weird to have that arc of fans watching the game on the field. The Next pitch is straight, ripping the air at the outside corner. Strike. The crowd spews curses at the ump. McGraw adds, "That's horseshit." Blent tells himself, "Damn, good location, maybe 93 miles an hour. Man up. He's going to do the same thing. I can make it in this league." Blent chokes down the bat, hit his bottom hand still 2 inches from the knob. The same pitch zips, heading a touch farther outside, letting Blent unleash, cracking the ball down the right field line. Fair. The right fielder races after it, but the ball scoots past. Brown, the base runner, is on the way to third. Blent's foot crushes the inner corner of first base as he's flying, digging for second, seeing the right fielder slinging the ball toward home. Blent decelerates into second base, the roar of the crowd enveloping him. Hands on hips, panting, he asks the field ump, "Time, please." The field ump bellows, "Time." Blent jogs a few steps back to pick up his cap. All right. So we switch points of view to Velez, Andre Velez is seated on the ground in left center. He paid a quarter for the privilege of sitting on his ass, surrounded by a boisterous mass of humanity behind a line of ropes in the deep outfield. Velez thinks he sees Martin standing up and waving at him from the stands. It's hard to tell from so far away. Velez is surrounded by cheerful boys, men, and some women. The men and boys are dressed in dark pants, white shirts, some with collars, some without, and dark sports jackets of varying ripeness. He is not one to throw stones about clothes, as the knees and elbows of his suit are smeared in gray dirt. And now there's Blent, goddamn Blent, leading off second base. He considers shouting, "Don't get picked off by the center fielder," but doesn't open his mouth. He can't tell who is who from the back because none of the players have numbers or names on their uniforms. Now batting, Joe McGinnity, a guy with a megaphone, announces from near the New York dugout. Fans roar. Velez sighs hard and picks a blade of yellow grass. A knock. The crowd roars. The third baseman stabs the ball shoulder high and fires it across to first. Sort of a weak throw, it seems to Velez. Blent slides into third. McGraw pats him on the back. "Bastard," Velez mumbles regarding McGraw and all 1906 managers. "Gotta be kidding me." A man nearby is loudly munching a pork chop, holding it in a grease-stained handkerchief. On the other side, a father and son are crunching apples. Everyone smells bad, or maybe it's just him. No, packed in tight on the subway, it smelled like a minor league locker room. That lousy pitcher's nothing, a nibbler. Just stay off the outside crap and hammer something. Slam it. I could destroy this guy, kill him. He shouts, "Fuck." Then he leaves. Inning over, the fielders jog toward the dugout. Velez groans as he stands, turns his back on the players, grinds his teeth, squeezes his fists till the nails dig in his palms, picking his way through the seated crowd, walking away from the game. He walks alongside a standalone section of bleachers to a gate in the 8-foot-tall wooden fence, and then he leaves the game. So that's their first game. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah, Steve, the names you chose, Velez, Martin, and Blent.
Yeah.
Are they any reason for those names? Where did it come from? Or
Yeah, well, I guess Martin, because if I had to pick my favorite manager of all time, it would be Billy Martin. Also, I don't know if anyone's here read the Patrick O'Brien novels, the Master and Commander series, but he has a main character in that. His name is Maturin. So that's an homage to him as well. And Blent, it's just sort of a blunt name. Maybe he's a little bit reminiscent of Jeff Kent to some extent. And Andre Velez is, sort of a mishmash. So he's the main character. He's the most mysterious. He is a superstar in the 21st century. He has a wife whose name is Cookie, who I always thought that was like the best superstar's name for a wife. Like Magic Johnson's wife is named Cookie. Velez also has a girlfriend in the 21st century, and he also has a mistress. So he's a complicated, interesting guy, and he was a steroids user. So he's got to come to terms with that in 1906 as well. So,
And where the title.
well, since it's a time travel novel, that's the idea of going, gone, but also just, in reference to hitting homers, going, gone as well. And also in the cover design, I don't know, do you guys know about Helmar baseball cards at all? Didn't you guys collect those? So Helmar is a company, a guy named Charles Mandel sells about 100 cards per week. They're handmade. He's a printing genius, and he makes cards in the style of the T206 cards, the 1933 Gaudi, and then lots of designs completely out of his own imagination. So you guys would all love his cards. Here's one that he did of John McGraw here. So check him out. Helmar baseball cards. The best way to look at his cards is on eBay. As I say, he auctions about 100 cards off a week. And so he provided the cards that are on the cover of this, including around the edges here. For a favor for me, he made some special cards of Blent, Velez, and Martin. And I put just the bottom fragments of the cards on the back of the book because I don't want people to have, an image in their head of what these guys look like. I want them to create that image by themselves. So that's with that. But here, I'll read.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yeah.
I was very amused by the trash talking that was going on between the base runners and I presume the pitcher.
Right.
And I'm wondering if I've never heard anything about trash talking in the modern game. That's not to say it doesn't go on, but do you have any information about whether it does go on now and or the extent to which it went on 120 years ago?
Well, it was a integral part of the game until the internet age, when if you caught a little clip of somebody cursing, it would go all over the internet. So there's not much trash talking anymore. I guess sometimes if a batter gets hit by a pitch, he might lose his stack and drop some F-bombs and things like that. There was this thing a few years ago where Yasiel Puig got hit, and I think he was challenging the entire Pittsburgh Pirates team at the time. So that's been expunged a lot. And I think if you go to some of the Latin American leagues, it's happening now, but in Major League Baseball, it's way down, of course. So yeah, I mean, it was all, an important part of the game for it's almost its entire history. The game of intimidation and getting in people's heads. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, along those lines, let me read this little bit that I think will surprise you. So here we're fairly well along in the 1906 season. We're at the Polo Grounds. It's the middle of the game, and John McGraw is razzing an umpire. The umpire's name is Shilzicki. Shilzicki, what the hell is wrong with you? You're the worst fucking umpire in the league. McGraw screams and rushes the home plate ump. Polo Grounds fans are booing. Shulzicki deemed Bowerman's tag, Miss Cincinnati's Miller Huggins hook sliding into home plate, scoring on a sacrifice fly. Shulzicki turns his back to McGraw, picks up the bat, and hands it to the bat boy. Cincinnati 5, New York 3. I'm talking to you, McGraw screams, eyes bulging, face and neck reddening, neck veins popping. Why don't you go back to fucking Asbury Park and get a job handing out towels on the fucking beach? Shulzicki spins to McGraw. Shut the hell up, which cranks McGraw to a higher degree. Don't tell me to shut up, you blind as a bat bastard. I'm trying to win a ball game here. You're fucking incapable. Miller Huggins brushes himself off, jogs past McGraw, and spreads his arms, tauntingly showing the safe sign to McGraw. McGraw barks at Huggins, fuck off. The vast majority of the crowd delights in every McGraw curse that carries to the stands. Many women are covering their ears, smiling with embarrassment. Polite fans sit with folded hands, suppressing laughs at the outbursts. McGraw repeatedly kicks dirt at Shulzicki. You should be a sausage vendor, but that would be an insult to all the other sausage vendors. Much of the crowd roars in appreciation. Face purpling, eyes bulging farther, McGraw reaches in his back pocket, pulls out dollar bills, and throws them in the air as he goes nose to nose with Shulzicki. Take the L, go to Penn Station, take the Long Branch line, transfer to Asbury Park. Stop right now, John, or I'm running you. McGraw's purple fist of a face shouts, I should be fuck. Then the face stops moving. McGraw chokes again, gags, ing. Eyes pushing out, mouth agape, stuck out tongue, desperately wagging side to side, face the colors of a spectacular sunset, the crowd roaring and cheering. McGraw focuses pleading eyes on Shulzicki, who inquires, John? Then John McGraw collapses to the Polo Grounds dirt. So that's when John McGraw in this alternative universe dies, eventually leaving an opening for one of our time-traveling trio, Bucky Martin, to eventually become manager of the Giants. So there you go regarding razzing on the field. Any other questions?
Yeah, Steve, I'm sure none of us have heard John McGraw speak. We've seen very little footage of him. That being said, I assume that that's probably what he would have sounded like. Did you have to do extensive research on the McGraw character as a manager?
Well, there's one in one of the biographies of McGraw. There was I think disciplinary action. It might have been against McGraw. I think it was. And so there was a court reporter, stenographer, and they actually wrote down the lines of cursing that McGraw did. I think it was towards an umpire when I guess it was Ban Johnson was or Gary Herman was disciplining him. So we do get a sense of how raw the language was at that time from that. So, and regarding the research that I did, I spent a week up in the library at the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, which was unbelievably great. I heard, have any of you been up there in the library at all to do research? Gary has. And so if you have a fascination with any part of the history of baseball, you can make you have to email them and say, I'm going to be up there and I'm doing an article about whatever your fascination is. And they really want to help out people who are serious in their baseball research. So if you want to go somewhere and sit in a Baseball Hall of Fame library and be surrounded by thousands of books and resources, and they have files on every player who's ever played, pretty much. So you can go look through their files, ask them questions. That's what they're there to do. They're there to help people doing research and people who are deep baseball fans, even if you just spend an hour or two or three in the museum, it's a really rich, unforgettable experience. You'll see photos and images that you won't see anywhere else. So there's a plug for that. But anyway, in all of the McGraw and Mathewson literature, you name it, you know that you all probably might know that McGraw and Mathewson and their wives lived together during one season, right? Do you guys know that? They all shared an apartment. It was McGraw's first season in New York, and I think it was 1903. I think it was. Gary, I sent you the article. But anyway, in all of the literature, there was, and I called John Thorne, who is the official historian of baseball, to ask him. I'm like, I can't find out the address where McGraw and Mathewson lived together in that season, and it's really bothering me. So he pointed me to the New York Public Library, and they used to have something called the city directory. Before there were phone books, there was something called a city directory where you could place your name so that when somebody came to, say, New York, who wanted to find you, your name would be in there alphabetically and your address. So on microfilm in the New York Public Library, I think it was 1903, I looked at the city directory for Mathewson, and it's Mathewson Christie, 76 West 85th Street. And then I look up McGraw, John, and that sometimes people would put their professions next to their name. And it was McGraw John, his profession, manager, and then 76 West 85th Street. So I found out the building where they all lived together for that season. And that so that on that block is where, so in Going, Gone, I have Mathewson and McGraw and their wives living together in a building across the street from that address. And I have my three, and when they moved to New York, they traveled with the team from St. Louis, and McGraw suggests to Blent that there might be an apartment open at 76 West 85th Street. So Blent, Velez, and the manager Martin live across the street from Mathewson and McGraw, and Blent often gets rides to and from the Polo Grounds with Mathewson and Mathewson's, big and expensive car. Otherwise, they take the L up there. And I'll read a little description of, this is Martin's routine. So this is after Martin's been named manager of the Giants, and he inherits a very dysfunctional team, and he has to have a fist fight with Turkey Mike Donlin in order to start to get control of the team. But this is some description of Martin and Martin's vibe during that year. And so the summer goes. Martin steeps himself in batting averages, on-base percentages, slugging percentages, ops, spray charts, and 4x3 batter grids. Many nights in the wee hours, a messenger stops by the Mathewson Martin apartment and slips an envelope containing sheets of statistics in the mail slot. First thing in the morning, Martin opens the envelope, sips coffee, and studies the updated stats. At 9:30 a.m., it's on to the ballpark, sometimes with Christy Mathewson and his driver, Henry. Other times, Martin takes the L, the train swaying as he gazes into the eye-level apartments along 9th Avenue. As people cooking, couples talking, couples arguing, babies crying. Sometimes the people in the apartments gaze back at him and wave hello. Then the train begins making its 90-degree turn from 9th Avenue onto 110th Street. Martin can see no track, and it's like gliding in air. One long block later, the train turns left onto 8th Avenue for the straight shot to the Polo Grounds, the Harlem River and the Bronx on the right, the natural escarpment of Coogan's Bluff looming on the left, like the Acropolis of Athens, lording over the open plain of the ball field. Martin likes to be available in the clubhouse for his players, who shamble through the door in varying degrees of sobriety. He hits fielding practice, tosses batting practice. Many evenings he dines early at the Ansonia Hotel, where reporters can get quotes from him regarding any late afternoon baseball world developments. Let's see. So, all right, that's that part. So there you go, a bit of flavor of what happens. So while this is all going on, Martin, Velez, and Blount, first they consult with Alexander Graham Bell and confide, you know, we're time travelers and we're trying to get back. And Alexander Graham Bell throws them out. Then Velez befriends Einstein. I'm sorry. Velez befriends Mark Twain, and he invites Mark Twain to a ball game. And at the ball game, Twain introduces Velez and Martin to his friend Nikola Tesla. And eventually they befriend Tesla. And Tesla becomes interested in what they're talking about. But especially Tesla is very interested in Velez's description of a cell phone. So that goes on. Meanwhile, so there you are with that. I don't want to burden you with too much information. So please do me a favor and look up this book on Amazon. It's not in a lot of bookstores in New York, but you guys are the audience for this book. People who love baseball, people who love, you know, old time baseball, people who love the New York Giants. And the more that I can impress the publisher with sales, the more there will be demand for a sequel from the publisher. So it's very, very, very important. Some people in Hollywood are talking about it, but you know, that and a Metro card will get you on the subway, as you know. So that's not really real. So anyone have any further questions or anything?
Yeah, Steve, I'm gonna just hark on two things and then I'll open it up. We have some hands raised. In a world full of spoilers, without you giving too much away,
That's okay.
Did they get back to San Francisco?
Don't answer.
Spoiler.
It's too much of a spoiler.
Okay, then that's fine. And the best, you know, this is a unique book in that every author we've had, it was a nonfiction book. This is a time travel book. Best way to get it?
Probably, I hate to say it, but probably Amazon. Just type going, gone in there and it'll pop up. And then when you have any questions or anything, email Gary, or my email's on the book. I really like responding to, you know, questions or comments that people have. And if you want to email me, so I have your email, I send out occasional blast emails, sort of, you know, stuff that I think is interesting. I don't know if anyone does Instagram. My Instagram is all 100% baseball. I can tell you, I'll tell you a quick little funny story about Vin Scully for you, which is on my Instagram, right? When he passed away a few weeks ago, I used to be a fact checker at Vanity Fair magazine. And for those of you who don't know, a fact checker, we have to double check all the articles so that Vanity Fair and Condé Nast doesn't get sued, right? All the facts in it. It's a very boring job. I used to describe it as being an intellectual busboy because you clean up everyone's mess and you don't get any thanks for it. So anyway, this was 30 years ago. My boss had a Rolodex this big, and I had noticed that she had the phone number for Vin Scully in there. So in the morning, while I was getting ready at home, I lived on 77th and West End Avenue between West End and Riverside. I know on NPR they said that today is the birthday of Vin Scully. So a few hours later, I'm at work, looking to waste a little time. My boss was away from her desk, and I got the Rolodex card for Vin Scully. I went to my phone, I punched in the number for Vin Scully. A woman's voice answered, and I said, "Hi, my name is Steve Hermanos, and I'm a big fan of Vin Scully. And I just want to say happy birthday." And there was a long pause, and she said, "This is the home of Vincent Scully, the architecture critic." Boom. So I felt like a complete idiot. And that shows me so that's the type of stuff that's in my Instagram. So
All right, Paul Ellis, you're up.
Yes, Steve, I just had a question about the time travel of Velez. So Velez is, is probably Hispanic, and then he goes back to 1906. Is there any reference to any hostility toward him because he's Hispanic, or is that just not given or not considered in the book?
Oh yeah, it's very important. So he is half black, and he's got distant Hispanic roots that they think it's some people who are in Curacao, they're not sure, right? It's an odd name, just like my name is Hermanos, and I'm not Hispanic. So they're back in time. So Velez, Blent, and Martin are on the train going from Oakland to St. Louis, right? And let me see if I can read that because it's very self-explanatory. But that's a great question and a very important question in the book. Let's see. Let me see here. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So they're talking about, the butterfly effect, time travel, all these things. They're so pissed off that this has happened to him, right? And then Martin says to Velez, "Meanwhile, we have to make up something about you. It's 1906. It's unfortunate we have to even think about it. The color of your skin." "What about the color of your skin?" Velez asked sarcastically, turning to Blent. "Not you, you pink grapefruit." Martin says, "It seems that even in this different world, there aren't any black men playing in the major leagues." Martin apologizes. "I'm sorry, but what color do you think you are?" So Velez's father was black, who was a major leaguer, and his mother was from Sweden. Okay. Velez's skin is, various women over the years have commented on how nice Velez's skin is, or what a nice color it is, but never which color it is. A light cafe au lait, perhaps. I don't know. What about you? Italian or something? So let's see. Velez stares at his hands, but cannot see any color in the dark. "The women I wind up with, their favorite color is green." All right.
Had an incredible season in 1962.
All right, Casanova, says Martin. "We've got to have a plan, a story that works in 1906. Before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, Martin says, they used to let Indians play. They often called them Chief Bender, Chief Myers. Those two guys are ball players in the newspapers. Think about it. Indian, Velez asked. The only Indians I ever meet are across a blackjack table, dealing, and one of my accountant's assistants. Chief Valet, says Martin, trying out the name. That's not bad, right? Valet? just has a nice ring to it. It obscures your whole background. Blent offers, how about Chief Coyote? Chief Coyote, Velez squawks, how about we call you Chief Crackerhead Dipshit? So that becomes an issue. And so that's what he is known as, Chief Velez, going forward. And at one point, he's playing against the at the tryout with the St. Louis Cardinals. The catcher is McGrady, and McGrady says, Indian, how what tribe? And Velez, like, scouring his mind, he can't think of a name of the tribe. And he says Ewok, which of course it comes from Star Wars, right?
Right, yeah.
But Ewok was based on Miwok, which actually is a real tribe. So that little joke works on a few levels there. So
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thank you.
Well,
so
Mars, you're
please
up.
buy the book. Please buy the book. Yes.
Mars, you're up. You gotta unmute yourself.
Okay, I came in kind of late on the meeting, but I have two questions. You just mentioned Chief Bender, Chief Myers, and I know Jim Thorpe was Indian. Was Chief Bender and Chief Myers actual American Indians?
I believe so.
And
Yeah.
and your jersey, I have the same jersey. I think it was the Tokyo Giants, because they had similar circus, or what they call Tiffany lettering, in the 30s and 40s, but the Giants never actually wore the exact lettering that you're wearing, and I have the same jersey. So is yours a Japanese baseball
No,
jersey?
it's a starter one, and it says 1936 Giants on it. So
Yeah, but yours is black and orange. They used the colors of blue over scarlet in those years. And in 36 and 37, because I collect these jerseys, they were all royal blue. It wasn't until the 40s that they were blue over scarlet. The first time
Okay.
they used black over orange was 33 to 35, prior to 1947 and onward, which they stayed with the black and orange color scheme.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, I have jerseys from every decade from the turn of the century, as well as the caps.
Do you have the 1906 World Champion jersey that McGraw made his players wear?
I have the black jersey with the Old English NY on the sleeve. Yes.
Mhm. But he had him wear a jersey that said World's Champions
And that
on it
one I do not have. I just
in
have the one
1906.
that has no lettering on the chest, but it has the NY Old English lettering on the sleeve.
Mhm. I had one made. Hold on. Give me 10 seconds.
Sure.
Giants looking good this game too.
What's the update?
3-0 already, because Evan Longoria shouldn't be playing third.
Oh, we're
Yes,
ahead
I
by
saw
3
that.
Oh, then, yeah,
runs.
Gary, you didn't see Longoria's error?
I did. That's what I'm saying. He shouldn't be playing third.
I don't know where Villar's in the game, but I don't know where
You
he's
shouldn't
playing.
be playing, period.
If he's gonna play with them next year, he should be playing third.
I
Villar was
can't
playing
find,
third. That might have been a triple play.
I can't find it, but I'll send a photo to Gary and he can send it on to you.
Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you very much.
I had actually a seamstress like do the lettering on it. It says World's Champion. So it's actually
Here's something
yeah.
very interesting. The Giants wore pinstripes a year before the Yankees.
Yeah, let me see if I can get that in there. See that?
Because in 1921 and 22, they had Navy pinstripes, and they had the NY emblem on the cap.
Mars, he's
Yeah.
showing you something.
Yeah,
What's
here's a picture of me on the field with my World's Champions jersey on it. It's hard to see, but if you buy the book, that's the author photo on the back of the book. You'll see it. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
yeah.
All right, Ed, you're up.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, I was going to compliment you on that jersey also. I noticed it was 1936. I just like the looks of it. Back on the question of the, trash talking on the field, wasn't that where Leo the Lip got his name from? That
Certainly.
went on right through the 50s.
Oh, yeah. How about the catcher, Gabby Hartnett?
Yeah.
Remember him? I mean, that's how he got his nickname, from just like trying to distract batters, talking trash. When I used to play, in high school, I tried out at college, I got cut, but that catcher was trying to distract me every time I got to bat. And that's part of the game, man. I mean, always, right? I have a son who's a sophomore in high school. He was a freshman starter last year, and he used to be so aggressive on base, and he got to, some points he was just trying to not do a mistake, and I'd yell out, distract the pitcher, distract the pitcher. He would ream me out when we got in my car to come home. It's like, don't say anything.
I'm sure in 1906 it was even heavier, but
it was heavier, and the ballparks were so small that they could hear everything, right? And I mean, all the fans could hear everything, and there was so much give and take between the ball players and the fans. It was a much more intimate experience, and the players were much more appropriate. After every game, fans would rush the field and try to snap the caps off of the players. Mostly boys would try to do that. So I got a question for you guys, which is, so the Polo Grounds, as you know, there are many iterations of it. Mine is 1906. So it's the Polo Grounds pre the 1911 fire, right? And I got very, very interested in the clubhouse back then, which in all the photos that I saw, it was in right field. It backed up to where the elevator tracks were. And apparently from the top of the elevator tracks, the players could walk to the end. There's a special gate. They go through and they go into like the third floor of the clubhouse. They got changed. They walked down a couple flights, and on the opposite side, it walked out in foul territory and out onto the field. I have never seen photos of the inside of that clubhouse, and it's sort of like an obsession of mine. So if any of you have any of that information or know where to get it, let me know.
Maybe somebody can. I just wanted to ask one more thing. You have a very rich imagination. Are you familiar with Mark Halperin, the author?
Yeah, sure. I like him a lot. Yeah.
Yes. This book reminds me of Winter's Tale a little bit.
All right. Well, I hope it's better because you're a baseball fan.
Yeah. Well, Winter's Tale, he got the movie review.
Right.
So, don't give up on that.
Oh, yeah. But, all I can do is smile and nod my head and say, okay. Right. And then it's not up to me.
That's the first thing I thought of was the time travel was Winter's Tale.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to approach every actor out there who, has expressed an interest in baseball. So we'll see what happens. So, and a very important character in this book is Christy Mathewson's wife. She becomes very, very important. So it's a fictionalized version of her.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
going
you
to buy
once
the book.
again.
Thank you.
Hindi, what'd you say?
I'm going to buy the book.
Good.
It sounds terrific.
Thank you, Hindi. I mean, it's up to all of you and Gary, of course, but in a few months or 6 months or something, we could do another one where, if a few of you have read it, it'd be, you might have.
You could do a book talk.
More questions, but I love all of your questions. I mean, really good, really right on it. And, it was very interesting for me to research, try to figure out, which hotels they stayed at in the National League, how they traveled, and just the feel of what the vibe was, on the team at that time. So, and the good thing is there were only 8 teams, right, in the National League. So I only had to really research, 8 cities in that regard. So it was cool, and I really, really got into the character. If I had to pick one player from that team who totally fascinated me, it'd be Turkey Mike Donlin. Just a guy, huge, a big personality. I sort of describe him as a proto Babe Ruth in terms of his popularity and his relationship with the fans. Fans loved him, worshipped him, and he he had a great relationship to the fans, mostly in left field. He was their guy. Now, he was also known as someone who would get drunk and get violent, and he was suspended because of that. And there were clauses in his contracts, as there were with a lot of players, that he wasn't supposed to drink during the season. But also, I'm sure a lot of you know, he married Mabel Height, who was a famous vaudeville actress, and he took, I think it was the 1907 season off to be on vaudeville at the height of his career, and then came back the next year. And he has a small part in Buster Keaton's movie, The General. So,
Steve, in case you don't know, we have an author who's spoken in our group, Steve Steinberg.
Yeah.
He's writing a book on Mike Conley.
Yeah, I sent him a copy of the book, a copy of Going, Going, Gone. So he's reading it now. And yeah, I got a nice fat folder on Turkey Mike, and you get, and I'll tell you someone else I developed an admiration for is Frank Chance. And those Cubs teams were amazing, and Frank Chance was the center of it all as the player manager. Just like one of the most solid baseball men in history. So all of that, I got to explore Honus Wagner a bit. That was really interesting. And of course, Christy Mathewson. And how many people here, I wrote this to be the best baseball novel ever, but I will say that the one other baseball novel that I really think is great is The Celebrant by Eric Rolf Greenberg. I don't know if any of you read that, but it's about this guy's friendship with Christy Mathewson. I think it's in 1912. I'm not sure, but it's the main character is I think second generation Jewish family from the Lower East Side, and they are jewelry makers. And this guy develops a fascination for Christy Mathewson and winds up designing a special pendant to give to Christy Mathewson. And it's a great baseball novel.
Christy Mathewson wrote a novel. Did you know that?
Well, he wrote Pitching in a Pinch, and what's the name of his novel, Hindi?
I don't. I never bought it. I saw it at Hall of Fame weekend, and it was expensive. I should have bought it, but he did write a novel.
Yep. Well,
he was very smart.
We'll have to buy it. Yep. He was smart and wanted everybody to know it.
All right, Judge Jim, you're up.
Thanks, Gary. Steve, when you were imagining a baseball time travel novel,
involving the Giants. How quickly did you settle on them landing in 1906 as opposed to the 20s, 30s, or even, let's say, 1951?
Yeah, I appreciate, hey, I love that question, Jim. The idea was to have them go from an era that's 180 degrees opposite from now in terms of the baseball. Go to an era where players were not buttoned up. There was no disincentive to show your emotions and personality on the field. That's the thing that bothers me the most about the way the game is played now in the major leagues. These guys, there's so much incentive for the guys now to look like robots, to not have any facial expression. And that's not what playing a game is all about. So the strategy, the hitting style, the intimacy of the ballparks, the intensity was 180 degrees different than it is now. So that's what I really wanted to explore. And so I thought a good mechanism for time travel was something happens along with the earthquake. And I'm like, well, they can't go back to 1989. So 1906 earthquake, which really did happen. And very soon when I started really getting into the dead ball era, I'm like, yeah, this works really, really well. And just from a writer's point of view, that era was going through immense technological change, the way our era is as well. So that was that was interesting as well. Things were changing. I mean, you had cars getting popular, but cars were only affordable by rich people at that era. And then, of course, you still had plenty of horse-drawn transportation, leaving horse crap everywhere. And meanwhile, you also had some electric vehicles. In New York at that time, there was a short-lived company that had something called an electric battery-operated taxi system, where you could hail a taxi and it was electricity driven. So, it was a fascinating era at that time. So, and having grown up in New York, and living out here, it was nice for me to have my head part of every day back in New York, going back on the streets of New York. And as you know, on the Upper West Side, so much of the residential buildings go back to that time. So, there's a bit in there where Velez is standing on Broadway across from the Apthorpe House Apartments, which is on Broadway between 78th and 79th Street. They're actually built in 1907 or 1908, but so I fudged things a little bit. But he's watching it being constructed, and that's extremely pleasurable for me to be able to go back and in my memory, combine memory with research with what's going on with these fictional characters. So, and just for you to know, my style in writing fiction is I do many, many drafts. This book had 30 drafts. So the early draft was 900 pages. So everything is gone over a lot, and there's not one word out of place, I don't think, in this book. So
but every draft was the 1906. You didn't write it in any other era at any time.
Yeah, definitely. So
Thanks, Judge. Anybody else have a question or comment before we wrap it up? All right, Steve, make one last pitch. Go ahead.
All right, Going, Gone, $17.99 on Amazon. If you have Kindle, you could start reading it in about 3 minutes if you want. or other e-readers. And thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. And a couple of you have emailed me through my website to give me your email addresses, which is great. Feel free to do that. Feel free to have Gary forward your email to me, and I can stay in touch that way. Or if you do Instagram, that's cool as well. But please help me sell Going, Going, Gone, because if I can impress the publisher with sales, it'll mean, you know, that there's going to be a sequel. And that is the goal, is to get paid so I don't have to do my day job. But you know, you guys are the perfect audience, and it's a real pleasure speaking with all of you. And I hope we can do it again in 4 or 6 months, you know, after a bunch of you, you know, have read it. So thanks, Gary, for setting this
Let's
up.
give it up for Steve.
And thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Steve,
so much
very
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.
Best of
Great.
luck.
Good for you.
And before you go, let me take a photo so I can put it up on my Instagram before I forget, please. And it'll be just, yeah, oh boy. Yeah, oh yeah, that looks good. Everyone looks extremely handsome.
Well, Hindi looks very pretty.
Yes.
We're a
and
great
Hindi
looking bunch.
Yeah, it's a great bunch. So thanks. It's a pleasure speaking with you. And you know, I might join one of your Zooms.
Yeah, don't
you
be
know,
a
as a
stranger.
spectator. Yeah.
Also, the recording will be sent out in the next day or so. So if that picture didn't come out, you could freeze frame the.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
Whatever's
yeah.
easy.
Keep on doing what you're doing, all your great energy, and you got a great group going. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
all
Have a
very
great
much.
night, everybody. I'll be
Take
in
care,
the room to
everybody.
close
Thank
out the
you.
room if anybody wants to talk some giant baseball.